I just kept trying to do better, and I loved watching the scale. I weighed myself, and I wouldn't recommend this to everyone. I weighed myself morning and night. And I learned so much in doing that. I learned that I could lose 5 pounds overnight, and I could gain 5 pounds during the day. So I would wake up in the morning, and that would be the weight that I would, quote unquote, like record. But then when I went to bed at night, sometimes that was, much higher, especially depending on how hydrated I was and those kinds of things. And then I would weigh myself the next morning. And so I just learned my patterns, and I watched it. And even though no matter what I was doing with my diet, meaning I kept continuing to improve it, I was losing 8 pounds a month. And it was just every month. And sometimes I wouldn't lose weight for 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden it would drop a couple of pounds, and it would drop a couple more pounds, and there would be the 8 pounds, for the month. And so it was just interesting to use the weight as a pretty objective measure and not to attach any emotion to it. I didn't feel good about myself when I lost weight, and I didn't feel bad about myself when I didn't, or when I gained a couple pounds. I just watched this number because after the first 2 months, I just had so much confidence in the process that it was easy to just stick with it.
Welcome to the Yogi Triathlete Podcast. We are Jess and BJ, and each week we share stories of people looking, finding, and living their purpose. And today we have another powerful transformation story. Like so many stories, took a long time to begin. But once Anthony Masiello decided and stuck with it, he was able to realize the big, permanent changes he lives today. Anthony is positively affecting the health of countless others by not only sharing his experiential wisdom with the world, but through Plant-Based TeleHealth, whose mission is to see a world where plant-based lifestyle medicine is available to all. He is a nationally board-certified health and wellness coach, a member of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and he holds certifications in areas such as food addiction and plant-based nutrition. I can't even imagine if he didn't finally decide to change and then back it up with his actions. I'm sure it was difficult at times, but also in my experience, when the rewards start rolling in, you realize that there's no other way to go. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. I'm super excited about our conversation.
I'm super excited about our conversation too. So we started this Plant-Based TeleHealth, the doctor interviews with Dr. Lori Marbus, who is one of the co-founders, and you are the other one, but you're the one that came to the world with the seed, and you said, Lori, let's plant the seed and water it. And so, you're the reason.
We did.
Yeah, you're the reason why it exists, and I know that we'll dive into that birth story. But I want to dive into your story because you had a massive transformation. You've lost about 160 pounds because you're not quite sure what your top weight was, right?
Exactly. So I just estimated it's around there, and exactly.
Yeah. So let's dive in. Let's dive into where it all first started. Relationship with food when you were younger, or how do you see this all unfolding?
Yeah, it's kind of confusing. I mean, I've had a lot of opportunities to go back and reflect and kind of dissect things, and that's where I learned most of it, because in it, living it kind of surprised me because something happened. So my mom and brother and I lived in North Carolina, and that's where I went to school. And then my father lived in New Jersey growing up. So almost the day after school let out, I was on a plane flying to New Jersey for the summer. And then I would spend the summer with my dad. And then the day before school started, I was back on the plane flying down to North Carolina, and then I would go to school. So I wouldn't see all of the kids that I was going to school with for whatever that is, 2.5 months or so over the summer. And my brother and I did that. So my brother and I were always together through these trips, and we're only 13 months apart. So we're almost like the same age. And so when I came back to start the 5th grade, apparently I had gained some weight over the summer. And because my friends noticed, and they probably wouldn't have noticed if we would have been around each other all summer, because these things don't happen overnight. But the fact that I was gone and then I came back, I mean, I guess I looked different than they remembered. And I remember my one friend asked me, he said, Anthony, how'd you get so fat over the summer? And I didn't know. And probably I didn't even realize I did, because even for myself, it happened so gradually. this was in the early 80s, and there weren't a lot of overweight kids in the school. So in fact, there were two in my grade.
Mm-hmm.
It was me and one other person, and it was a little bit of a thing, and it was enough of a thing where I started to kind of identify to myself. I started thinking about myself as, the fat kid. And I only say that to emphasize that it did pose challenges. There were things that were hard. I would think twice before I would approach a girl. We were going roller skating on Friday nights, and before I would go ask someone to couple skate, I started to think things to myself like, well, she's probably not going to want to, couple skate with me, that kind of stuff. So I don't know. We talked briefly beforehand. Maybe someone could help me figure out what all that means. But for me, it's not even worth going into. But I just want to emphasize the fact that that's how kind of I identified growing up.
Well, and it's like putting your worth on the shape of your body, right? So it's very surface level. But that's also, that's such a. You're so much more than that, right? But and especially like I remember that we're probably about the same age. I'm 49, and like there was only a couple of kids that were leaning towards that overweight, obese lifestyle, and obviously it's much different now. It's really wild to think about that. Like the norm was like healthy, fit, active kids.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it was amazing. And I think we are the same age because I'm 49 and I'm trying to plan what I'm going to do for my 50th this year. in August. But I haven't started planning it. But anyway, so I'm sorry, I get off topic. So growing up and looking back to what you just said, I probably would have looked pretty close to normal today. If I would have been in the 5th grade, so it's not like I gained 100 pounds over that summer. I don't know how much weight I gained, but the thing is that I started thinking that way. And I think that created just more of the same. I just continued to identify that way. I probably, whether subconsciously or otherwise, continued to maybe eat in a way or live in a way that I just continued to gain weight. So I continue getting bigger. The part that I don't understand, and I say is confusing, is my brother, who I was with all the time, grew up lean and strong, and we were in kind of the same environment. So I don't know if there is something different, about my metabolism versus his metabolism. I've learned enough now to know that whatever it was doesn't matter, because I've learned how I could do something about it, and I can, and I was able to, recover from it.
Yeah, we experience that a lot. The why we get stuck in the why. You can get stuck in the why. You can because you'll never really know the absolute 100% truth why. Like there's so many things that can be involved.
It's true. You can analyze it forever, and not an ounce of analyzing it actually helps. It can if it helps you to make the behavior changes, but the behavior changes are the same whether you know why you got that way or not. The solution is the same.
We were just talking about this, like we were really dissecting this why, because we see people get stuck in it, and probably because I've gotten stuck in it many times, right? And I'm like, but it doesn't matter what the why is because the action's still the same.
Right.
The end result is change happens from action. And so if you can use the why and the evidence of, why you're sitting in a certain position in life, and you can use that to fuel your desire to, shift it if it needs to, if in a direction that's healthier, that is, offers a better life for you, then great. Even then, the why doesn't matter because the action's still the same.
Right. And ultimately, it's whatever you do repeatedly enough to build new habits. And when you've got those new habits, it doesn't matter what. That's why I tell people, if you love to eat, if you just love to eat delicious, healthy food, then just do that, and that'll become your habits, and everything else will fall into place. Or, other people don't care what they eat. Like that's great too. Just eat from these kind of categories of food, and you'll be fine. But
Because it's all habit.
We can create habits in the other way too.
The chips are habit, and the soda's habit. Like there's all these books on habit, right? How to create habits. Well, we are experts at creating habits.
Exactly.
It's just, are we aware of our habits, and do we want to keep them?
Right.
Are they serving us?
Yeah. So I obviously learned all of this after the fact, because I did not know this through elementary school.
No.
And I didn't know it going through high school. I probably graduated high school weighing a little bit over 300 pounds. So I was big then. And then I went through college. And if we just kind of fast forward to 2005, by that point, I weighed 360 pounds. I was 33 years old. I was already medicated for high blood pressure. I was resisting. My doctor kept wanting to prescribe medication for high cholesterol. I had eczema on my fingers. I had psoriasis behind my neck here. I got frequent migraine headaches. I was diagnosed with sleep apnea. And all of that led to me being denied a 20-year term life insurance policy when my wife was pregnant with our second son. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, that was my biggest wake-up call. And it was the fact that this company, with all this data that plugged in all of my information, they got an answer out from their algorithm that said he's probably not a good bet. He might not make it 20 years. Don't insure him. That's how I interpreted that. And for whatever reason, that forced me to reflect. And it forced me to take a really honest, objective look at what was my life really like, and what was I doing. When I did that, I wasn't necessarily happy with what I found. There were the obvious and easy things. I worked, I would go to meetings a lot at work, and I would go to a conference room, and many times there were just a lot of armchairs around a table, and I didn't fit in an armchair at 360 pounds. So I would look to see, sometimes they had overflow chairs like off to the side that were just stacked chairs. And I would always go try to grab one. I would try to get to a meeting early and grab one of those and put it at the table just so I could sit there comfortably. Or sometimes I would have to wedge myself into that armchair. Or things like when I would travel on an airplane and I'm walking down the aisle by myself, looking for my seat, and everyone with empty seat next to them, I would just feel their eyes on me, and maybe they were thinking, not here, not here, not here. And then when I would walk past, I would sense maybe a sigh of relief, right? Like, oh. And then when I did get to my seat, again, I would kind of hover over and wedge myself between the armrests, and I would fold my arms across my lap, and I would try to take up as little room as possible. But all of these things, I'm just saying this to say when I looked at it, I didn't have the quality of life that I felt like I really wanted. And that was motivating for me to nudge me towards needing to do something about it.
And you didn't, and I've heard you talk about this, but you didn't point the finger at the insurance agency, or you weren't looking for some other thing outside of you to be the root cause of this. You actually shifted that to, what action can I take? I'm curious about this. I know you probably had a feeling that it was going to take a lot of work. You probably already knew that.
Yeah. Well, I had tried several times. I would lose 20 or 30 pounds, and then it would come back 40 or 50 pounds. And then I would lose some weight, all through college, even late through high school. So I didn't pretend that I knew that this was solvable. And I was focused on the weight because that was like the external marker. But it's really, I knew that all of these other things were related, to that. But you're absolutely right. And that was the luckiest thing that happened to me when I read that letter from the insurance company. Because if I would have been in a different mood, or maybe if, depending on how I felt, I could have blamed the insurance company. Even when I called my agent, who I had been working with for a while, it wasn't just for this insurance. This is somebody who I, do planning with. He said, well, we can go out and we can talk to another company and we'll see, we'll get it insured. But, it's almost like every excuse in the world to not blame myself. Like, everything is there. But the problem is when you blame things that you don't have any control over, you're completely helpless. Then you put yourself into you're a victim then. I'm a victim of the insurance company, or I'm a victim of the healthcare system, or I'm a victim of society, because it's society's fault that I was looked at as not being a normal kid or whatever. But as soon as you turn that around and you say, no, it's my fault, right? That's not meant to be demeaning or to be depressing or to be anything. It's actually incredibly empowering, because as soon as something is your fault, then now you have all the power in the world to do something about it. And that's where it starts to get exciting. And I don't know why or how that happened in this case with the insurance company, but it did. And I'm super grateful that I didn't start blaming other people or try to laugh it off as a joke. I have 100 jokes that I would tell, when I would meet people who I didn't know, and I would try to deflect some of this stuff,
Yeah. Did you sell yourself or others on being like the happy fat guy, or this is just the way I am, or?
Sure. And I'm 6'4", so it's easy for me to say I'm just a giant. Sure, I'm twice as wide as you. I'm also almost twice as tall as you. There's lots of things. I would say I'm actually not fat. I just have super, super, super thick skin and stuff you do stuff like that. And it's all fine and it's good. And, with friends and with family and in public and things like that. But the thoughts that really I started to pay attention to are the thoughts that I had when I was laying in bed at night by myself, where there's no hiding. When you have your own thoughts and you're only thinking about yourself, it's there's nowhere to deflect. There's no one to pretend to. It all becomes very real.
I like how you said that it's empowering, when you really take that honest look. And, I had a similar journey, not with my physical body, but probably my relationship to my physical body, but, mindset and, wanting to offer more peace and love in the world, and then seeing that I wasn't always doing that. And that was, a couple times throughout the day, but it is empowering. And so my question is do you feel like that's the difference? All those times you did those diets or whatever. And so we can look at it and say, well, maybe those diets were calorie restriction or whatever. But really it was you weren't quite ready yet to look at that ownership and turn that into power to take action.
Yeah, I don't really know why I wasn't able to do that in the past. It's hard to figure out, but I will say that that's a huge factor that helped me with this time, that was successful for me. And I mentioned it briefly, but when I say it helped me to reflect my life, I just started asking, is this what I'm willing to settle for? And that's, I believe in life that we get what we settle for. And just learning, just the thought process, I don't know where the mindset came from, but I was scared because my second son, his name is Henry, he's 15 years old now, he wasn't born. And this company this insurance company told me I wasn't going to see his 20th birthday. So they don't give you a range. They don't say you're probably going to go 19 years. For all I know, that I was going to go 6 years or 10 years. I don't know. I'm kind of thinking that I'm 15, 16 years into a 20-year death sentence right now, and I'm feeling pretty great. So I know, and of course I ultimately got the insurance policy with no problem in the preferred category and all of that stuff, and we'll get so I'm not worried about it now. But that's what I was thinking, and it's relating it to experience in life, and I've told this story before, but my wife and I took my son Evan when she was pregnant. My wife and I took my son Evan to the fair that pops up in the church parking lot, here. And when we were at the fair, we're walking around, and he was 18 months old, around 18 months old. So he's just starting to communicate, and you can kind of tell what he likes and doesn't like. And that was fun for us. We loved being parents. And previously, much younger than that, you kind of just have to take care of them, but they don't really do very much stuff, right? So we were excited to see him around all this hyper stimulation, there's lights and there's bells and there's buzzers everywhere. So we're walking around and we're smiling, having fun. And then we come around the corner and he sees a train ride. And he starts like freaking out. I'm holding him against my chest and he's wiggling and he's pointing and I'm like, look, he knows he wants to go on this train, and he had several, Thomas the Train was a thing back then. And he had all these pull train toys before he could even walk, that he used to play with. And I think this is the first time in his life he saw a train that he could ride on. Everything else was toy trains or on the TV. So he was like, I'm going to go ride on this train. He knew. And so he's pointing and he's like saying probably train or Thomas or whatever he's saying. So we start walking over there towards the train. And my wife and I are excited because, hey, he knows what he wants to do and we're going to be able to help him do it. That's cool. So then when we get close, I put my thumbs under his armpits and I go to pull him away to hand him to my wife so she can take him on the ride. Right? And he grabbed my shirt and he wouldn't let go. And it's like, he was holding on to me, and I thought, he wants me to take him on the train ride. But, he's got the wrong dad for that because, I don't fit on an airplane for people. I barely fit on a train for people. I don't fit on a kiddie ride train. So at least at the time I was stronger than him. So I was able to get him off and hand him to my wife. And she took him. And they gave their tickets to the attendant, and I was just watching with a big smile on my face. And at this point, I'm sure he did not even remember that I existed because he was getting on the train, right? And then I stood there, and the attendant kind of snapped me out of my stare, and he said, "Excuse me, sir." I guess I was blocking the gate. He said, "You have to stand and wait over here." So I moved over, and I'm literally standing there behind a metal fence, and I'm watching as my wife and Evan are riding around in circles on this train, having fun and laughing. And two questions popped into my mind. Is this the kind of father that I'm going to be? Watching from the outside, not being able to participate. And then for my wife, who was pregnant and probably not very comfortable wedging herself onto this train, is this the kind of husband that I'm going to be? So the answer to both of those questions, I wanted to change. If I didn't make changes, I know the answers to those were going to be yes. I was like, what's next? We're at the kiddie ride. What about when the kids want to go, skiing or snowboarding? We love doing that now in the winter. What about when they want to go for a hike? What about when they're doing their jump rope for heart, that they do in elementary school? What am I going to do? I'm just going to sit and watch them? For my entire life. And that wasn't acceptable to me. So I knew, I had to change.
I think a lot of people get to that point, and I wouldn't say a lot of people, but they get to that point and there's that decision to make of I can endure this. I can just endure this. I can make it work because it's a known. I actually know what I do every day. I know, but it takes that courage and actually bravery to step up to it and really have that conversation with your heart and say, we gotta change something here.
Yeah.
I think is that just the way your brain works? I know you don't know why.
Not with everything, but that's exactly what happened at that point in time. I think honestly it was just important enough to me. And I think I talked myself into a rock bottom moment. And we can think a lot about rock bottom. It's really just things could always have gotten worse, right? But that rock bottom is the point where we choose to turn it around. And for me, that was my threshold. I had to do it. Nothing that I could do as far as, eating foods that were unhealthy for me. Nothing could. I felt bad enough where I could do anything. I didn't have to all those little temporary pleasures and temporary satisfaction from different meals or treats or snacks or whatever it was. I was willing to give it all up, because this was so much more important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so powerful. And it's just, gosh, such an awakening to what's our worst fear, right? Death, right? We live in these bodies that are hardwired for survival. And then you're starting a family. You're just at the beginning and there's so much to go. And your one son is so young still. And then the other one's not even born. And here's a calculation that's saying no, you're going to die Like, we can't.
I'm not going to be there for
like
it. I'm not going to be able to participate.
We're not going to get the money that we need to keep this business going because we're going to have to pay you out. So we can't do this. And I mean, if that's not a wake up call, oh my gosh, I don't know what is. So let's talk about how you did it, right?
So I did it I started with another failed attempt. I set a New Year's resolution to give up sweets and soda. This was now towards the end of the year, towards the end of 2005. And I gave up sweets and soda, which is always a good thing. And I said I was going to eat less, and I set a goal to lose 50 pounds over the year of 2006. And I gave myself some wiggle room. I figured I probably should be able to lose 5 pounds a month. But I give myself 2 free months, So I went with 50 pounds instead of 60, because I wanted to be successful. And I thought that was realistic, and I thought that was a goal I could work towards. So I kept myself hungry. I didn't eat any soda, drink any soda. I didn't eat any sweets. And by the end of February, going into March, I had not lost a single pound. And
right, because when
I was depressed.
When you're
that
not
was depressing.
when you're not getting calories, your body's going to hang on to it. It's like, oh, we need food. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did that? So you use the.
So I said I need to do something different. I need a plan. Unfortunately, back then the most popular things were like Atkins. I was already vegetarian. I had been vegetarian since the 90s because that helped me at one point to lose weight. Obviously, all of the weight came back, but I felt better. So and then I kind of fell in love with the idea of not eating meat. So I started Google searching for vegetarian weight loss, and for somehow Dr. Furman's book Eat to Live popped up on Amazon, and so as a result, but it was on Amazon. So I clicked on that link, and it shows a picture of the cover of the book, and there was this big stamp. This is the first edition. This stamp is not on there anymore. Like, it's almost like this stamp was there for me, and it says fast and sustained weight loss. And it's I should have had the book standing here. I still have the book, and the pages are completely yellow and everything now. But then I read all the reviews and the comments, and no one talked about weight loss. Everyone talked about getting healthy. And I was like, wait, I don't really want to lose weight. What I really want is I want to be like these people. I want to get healthy. And that was another big thing. That was another difference from any previous attempt that I had to lose weight. I was now focused on, I'm going to get healthy. And as I get healthy, the weight is going to fall off. And so I bought the book and I did it. I made plenty of mistakes in the beginning. I didn't do it perfectly from the beginning, but I said, okay, I'm going to buy it. And whatever this book says to do, I'm going to do it. So I started reading it. And as I would read chapter 1, I would start doing what it said to do in chapter 1. And then I would learn a little bit later that maybe it needs a little adjustment. But I would just continue adjusting as I went. And in 2 months, then by the time Henry was born and came home from the hospital, just 2 months after buying Eat to Live, I lost 30 something pounds. And I was like, wow, this really works. And that was incredibly motivating. I mean, once you lose the first 30 pounds, it's pretty easy just to keep doing what you're doing. And for me, it was very motivating to try to do a little bit better, every day, every week, every month, to try to refine a little more, to learn a little bit more. I think I'm grateful that I didn't have so much social media and so many other resources back then. I just kept reading the same book over and over. I kept reading that book. In the back, there were frequently asked questions. I would read those one at a time. And I went on Dr. Furman's website and I read the other success stories. And that's all I did. I mean, when I say that's all I did, I didn't go exploring for other options or other ways to do this. I was like, okay, this is my path. I'm going to stick to it.
I love that you pulled. I'm going to talk about two things.
This is like BJ's dream subject. Like, just stay focused on one thing.
But you pulled your goal. So you're so driven to the goal of weight loss. And this is the same thing we do with our athletes. Like, they're so driven on hitting a certain pace for a run, when the actual the actual real goal is way above that. It's way above that. There's so many other factors. The faster pace or the losing the weight is just one one part of this higher goal that you need to focus on.
Right. It's like one measure. Really, it's just a piece of information at the end of the day, like the weight. But, for me, it's one, for people who need or want to lose weight, it's a very easy one to measure. It's very objective. So I think it's helpful. But yeah, and that's how I was like, my goal totally changed. I wanted to get healthy.
And how did you stay, I don't know if you can answer this, but how did you just stay focused on something like this? Because there are so many, I know you didn't have social media, but I'm sure you were in a community of people and people were like, oh, let me help you read this book, or your grandmother or somebody's like, check this out. Like,
yeah.
How did you stay focused?
I think that's me.
Okay.
I think I'm okay to get hyper focused, and I get hyper focused on all kinds of different things, whether it's hobbies or work, or in this case, I became obsessed with the process of getting healthy, which I was fine with. I think it was a reasonable obsession to have given where I was starting, but I just kept trying to do better, and I loved watching the scale. I weighed myself, and I wouldn't recommend this to everyone, but I weighed myself 2 times a day. I weighed myself morning and night. And I learned so much in doing that. I learned that I could lose 5 pounds overnight, but and I could gain 5 pounds during the day. So I would wake up in the morning, and that would be the weight that I would, quote unquote, like record. But then when I went to bed at night, sometimes that was, much higher, especially depending on how hydrated I was and those kinds of things. And then I would weigh myself the next morning. And so I just learned my patterns, and I watched it. And even though no matter what I was doing with my diet, meaning I kept continuing to improve it, I was losing 8 pounds a month. And it was just every month. And sometimes I wouldn't lose weight for 2 weeks. And then all of a sudden it would drop a couple of pounds, and it would drop a couple more pounds, and there would be the 8 pounds, for the month. And so it was just interesting to use the weight as a pretty objective measure and not to attach any emotion to it. I didn't feel good about myself when I lost weight, and I didn't feel bad about myself when I didn't, or when I gained a couple pounds. I just watched this number, because after the first 2 months, I just had so much confidence in the process that it was easy to just stick with it.
It's so interesting how you're just gathering information about, like, oh, my weight actually fluctuates every day. So when we're super fixated on, like, I want to get down to 150, I got to get to 150, we're limiting this natural process of fluctuation. Like, overnight, our body is healing. We're getting rid of, we're absorbing nutrients and water, and we don't, dinner is getting digested and all of that, and everything, it's always changing. So really, when you focus it to how do you feel and are you healthy, the weight loss is going to take care of itself. And I'm assuming that you hit one point where you're just like, the body was like kind of dropped in and was like, this is our weight.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll speed through the rest. So by the end of 2006, I had lost a total of 90 pounds. So I blew away my goal of losing 50 pounds for the year, and I had more energy than ever. So then I decided at that point I was going to start exercising. And I say that because I didn't do a step of purposeful exercise during the year of 2006. I mean, if you think about it, we had a newborn and a toddler at home. I commuted an hour each way to a job that I probably worked 10 hours a day. Like, it wasn't that I had a lot of time on my hands, and, getting home then with a newborn and a toddler was a lot. But now I just felt like I wanted to do it. So, and I wanted to run. My wife was always a runner, and I used to go to races and hold her stuff and meet her at spots and take her gloves from her, or hand her whatever she needed, whatever she thought she was going to need at whatever mile she thought she was going to need it. And, but I was always watching, again, a little bit like being outside that train. I was watching someone else participate. So, I wasn't good at it. We had a treadmill. My wife wanted to buy a treadmill when we bought our house, and I was insistent that we get a good one, meaning one that I could use if I was motivated. And we bought it when I was 360 pounds, so we ended up buying a probably like a gym grade treadmill. So we had it in the basement. So I just started going on it for a half hour, and I would just play with the speeds. I would run for as long as I could, and then I would slow it down to a walk. And then I would, when I recovered, I would bump it up. And I mean, I was running for like, I don't know, a minute or 2 minutes in the beginning, but I just continued, and it became fun to me. And then I could see to the point where I could run, a quarter mile. So like the virtual lap thing on the thing, I could run like 1 lap around the track. And then I would take a little break, and then I would run another lap around and when I say take a break, I would just walk. I'd always alternate between walking and running. Then I could run 1 mile. Then I could run 1.5 miles and take a very short break, and I could run another 1.5 miles. And as soon as I could do that, I joined the running club at work, and they ran a series of 5K races. So in March, I ran my first outdoor run was at a 5K race, and I ran it in like 27 minutes. And after, that's like 3 months after not being able to run for a minute or so. And it was another confirmation that my body was working. Mm-hmm. I just credit the way my body was actually getting tuned up. And it was fun for me. And it was exciting to be the person who was getting the bib and to stash my own stuff, so that I could come back and get it after the race, and not to be the one who was outside watching, but to be the one who was participating. And after I ran that one, like, I was hooked. And I knew that my life was going to consist of, living a healthy lifestyle, eating a healthy diet, and enjoying, physical activity in ways that I had never, ever been able to do before in my entire life.
And just like living a better life, right?
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is it, people. This is the recipe. And I want to touch upon one thing about the food. So that January 1st, you went into, caloric deprivation. You were hungry. You gave up soda, sweets, all of that. Lasted 2 months. Didn't lose any weight, which, as you said, felt very depressive. So when you got Dr. Fuhrman's book, like, was there calorie deprivation? Was there, like, what was it? Like, what?
I don't know,
because
I didn't pay attention to anything other than eat more vegetables, eat more fruit, eat beans every day, and have some nuts and seeds.
So you were
that's
eating a
that's
lot.
what I paid attention to. Yeah. And it ended up, and I started. It was always eat more for me.
Yes.
It was, I never used to eat breakfast. Or if I did, maybe once a week I would have, but it would be like an egg and cheese sandwich,
Yeah.
And then I said, well, I was at work and they had this fantastic fruit bar that I walked right past every day for the first 5 years I worked there. So I said, well, hey, if my goal is to eat more fruits and vegetables, like, I can start by just going and eating a container of fruit every single morning. It was like cut pineapple and melon, and sometimes they had berries, and I made out well on those days because I paid by weight, so I said, okay, I'm going to have it worked out to be about a pound is what fit in here. So I ate a pound of fruit for breakfast every day when I never used to have breakfast. So it was about, it was always about eating more fruits and vegetables. And then when I would go out to lunch with my friends, so if we would go to the pizza place, in the very beginning, I would still order 2 slices of pizza. That's what I used to order. But I wouldn't touch the pizza until I ate my gigantic salad. And we know how that goes. Eventually, after having a pound of fruit for breakfast and you eat this huge salad, you're not going to eat 2 slices of pizza. And then it turned into 1 slice of pizza with no cheese. And up here they call it like the bruschetta pie. It just has like chopped up tomatoes on it and on a piece of bread. And then eventually you can just get rid of the whole pizza, and that becomes something that you can eat very occasionally, because the salad has. There's one salad that I used to get at this pizza place. It had chopped pear, and it had chopped apple in it, and it had a few walnuts, and it had some dried cranberries. And like, there's just so much flavor, and it was so satisfying just like that eventually, you get rid of the pizza, and then you're just eating this gigantic salad for lunch, and then coming home and steamed vegetable dishes. I didn't cook fancy meals, but it was delicious. It was good enough to me, and it was very filling.
Yeah, and I think we got the deprivation again. Like the deprivation just doesn't work when we know that eating as much fruits and vegetables as you can works, and you're gonna stop eating at some point because there's so much fiber, and you're gonna get that satiation in the gut where
And I would say especially to somebody who's first transitioning, like that's exactly true. And then I have seen in myself and others, 10 years in, 20, maybe I do feel like I could eat too many fruits and vegetables right now because I'm really, really good at it. But definitely, I think of it as the rate of change that determines your results. So going from eating ice cream, at night and having, cheese stuffed crust pizza for lunch with garlic sauce on top of it or whatever it is, or grilled cheese sandwiches and French fries, like going from that to eating salads and fresh cut fruit, that's a huge change. And I think that it's fair for someone to expect huge results in making that change.
2 observations of what you just shared. One, on the treadmill, I picture you on the treadmill, like pushing up the speed and lowering the speed, having no hang up on how much volume you need to go. What is the speed? What is your heart rate? What you just started. And the same thing with the fruit and vegetables. You weren't asking how much fruit do I need to eat and getting all caught up in the details of things, which can, again, stunt the growth into what is your higher purpose, which is just health. Just start somewhere.
Just to feel better.
Yes.
Yeah, to enjoy myself more, ultimately. Yeah, exactly. And I wasn't so smart that I knew I wanted to do it that way. That's just how it played out. And as we look back, I do think it's very valuable and reasonable for you and me to look back on the situation and to try to pick out these pieces, because I do think that if someone else can learn from that, then I think that's valuable. I certainly learned it as a going through, and now I can continue to live my life with that new understanding. But yeah, I think you're exactly right. That's exactly
just
what it
keep things simple. It's simple. We get so caught up in all this other stuff. So I think what I take away from it is just start and keep it super simple. Don't overcomplicate it. We're so good at that.
What would you say to somebody who's stuck in that start stop? Like they're starting and then they're stopping because it's not working. They're starving. They're miserable. They're not losing any weight.
Yeah. So what I say is that the only thing that matters is the permanent changes that you can make. And I would rather somebody make a committed change that, let's say if their goal is to be fully 100% plant-based, I would rather see somebody make a full commitment to go 10% plant-based when they're starting, or to go 20%, but commit to it. Like, draw a hard line. Pick one food that you are going to eat every day and then eat it. Like, let's say you're going to have a half a bag of baby carrots every day, and then just do it. Or let's say you're going to have like you're going to have an apple and a banana for breakfast every day, and then just do that. Like, don't make it so hard that you fail, and then you feel all those feelings because as soon as you fail, you say, this didn't work. I can't do this. This isn't right for me. You tell yourself all those things, and your body listens. So pick a really easy goal, but it's permanent change, because as we talked a little bit about habits in the beginning, you just have to do it long enough to where it becomes easy and automatic and enjoyable. And then when you make it, through that, when you've had a banana for breakfast, a banana and an apple for breakfast for 6 months, maybe you're ready to change your lunch a little bit. And then you're ready to make another change. Like, I also don't think it has to be a race. People are incredibly impatient. I'm impatient with a lot of things in my life, but lifestyle change, I don't think it's fair for us to be impatient with ourselves. We can't expect to get these changes in such a short period of time, because we set ourselves up for failure. We have too high of expectations. It is hard. It's very easy to live this way. It's very easy to eat this way. But it's really hard to change. So that period of change is finite. And it doesn't matter if somebody goes all in and they can keep that period of change down to 6 or 8 months, like, that's great. But someone else, maybe that change takes you 2 years. So it's going to take a lot of effort over those 2 years to make the change. But just know that at the finish line, like, this is easy. It's automatic. It's unconscious decisions. I haven't been, quote unquote, tempted to eat anything that's not whole food plant-based in probably, 10, 12 years. I still haven't had a soda or sweets or a cookie or a slice. I've never had a slice of Henry's birthday cake, in my entire life. And it doesn't matter. Like, it's easy because I've never do it.
It's so good. It's so good. I love your perspective on it. And, as you know, we've interviewed all but two of the doctor current on the roster of Plant-Based TeleHealth. And the story that's coming up for me is Dr. Miller's story that took her a long time. Like, she was doing all the right things. She's like, I'm not getting better. Like, wow. Yeah. And then for her, it was like, oof, it was mindset. I got to relax. I got to start going to yoga. Mm-hmm. Right. So we got to find like our thing, but being aware of when that wall comes up, right? What is that wall? And, can I take a breath, get honest with myself? Where am I now? And is there a gap between who I want to be? And then what's the first and next? The question is always, what's the first? And then the next question is, what's the next logical step that I need to make? I mean, I think
it's a more peaceful way to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Okay, so this is what I love about the journey, is that all this stuff and going to New Jersey and coming back, and the kids asking me why you gained all the weight, and the unhealthy lifestyle and the no life insurance policy. It all led you up to this amazing creation that the world is now benefiting from, which is plant-based telehealth. And so I want to know, like, okay, so now you're doing the lifestyle change, things are getting better, life is more enjoyable. But now there's a whole professional track that happens that you shift around, and then which ends up being now this current platform for people to have access to plant-based lifestyle medicine all over the world. So take us through.
It sounds so big when you say that.
It is so big. Dude, this is like life change. Nobody was doing this.
Wow.
And now you've created this. And I think I want to shine the biggest light I can on this, because this is such a game changer, right? This is such a game changer. We've seen it in other industries, and now we're seeing it in medicine, and that's amazing.
And to be birthed in the most challenging time in recent years that we've had, to have this come out.
But maybe like the best
time.
Yeah.
Well, I do have thoughts on that, and I can share both sides of that.
Yeah.
But so how it started. So I'll just to wrap up the story. So by September of 2007, I had lost a total of 160 pounds. I was on no more medications. And to your point earlier, my weight loss, my lifestyle and diet stayed exactly the same, and I stopped losing weight. August 2007, I weighed 197 pounds. By the end of September, 197 pounds. By the end of October, 197 pounds. And that's even with and I continued to run further and further. I also ran my first half marathon that same September, at the same time so it didn't matter how much I was exercising or anything. My body found its 197 pounds. And it's stayed within that range, I would say plus or minus maybe 5, sometimes 10 pounds for the next 15 years. So I got the insurance policy in the preferred category. So, which was other news for me, because I had put so much thought into what they went through to deny me, that I was willing to accept that now they put me into the preferred category, which probably means I don't need the insurance, which means they think I'm going to live for a really long time. And that just makes me happy, because I'm going to be an active part of my kids' lives for a long, long time. So
that's so cool. Like from high risk to
preferred.
You're not going to live 20 years to now being like the one who they're making their money off of.
Right. And I didn't expect that. I thought I was going because I wanted to document that this is what I did, and they were going to tell me to come back in 2 years to see if I maintained it. Because I didn't expect them to think that I was going to be able to continue this. I didn't expect that I was going to be able to do it. I expected I did, but I wasn't certain that I was going to be able to continue these results either. But I guess they had enough confidence, so I'll take it. So all this time, I'm working in pharmaceutical research at Novartis. And I was on a campus here in New Jersey that was about 500 acres, and there were about 10,000 people on this campus. So I transferred my own health. All of my colleagues and coworkers were excited for me. I had several opportunities to present. I spoke with people in the cafeterias about what we could do to make healthy choices. So I was helping in the community, but I couldn't help this thing in the back of my mind that kept saying, maybe 80% of what we do here is just to allow people or enable people to continue to live unhealthy lives. Meaning, if we didn't have medication for something like prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, then people would have to find other ways to control that. Or if we didn't have medication for high blood pressure, or if we didn't have medication for high cholesterol, what would people do? They might be pushed to make lifestyle changes. So the disconnect kind of, I was excited to work, and I came from, my first job was at the National Institutes of Health. And that's where I learned that people could actually go to work for a bigger purpose. I normally thought people went to work to make money, but these were people who were dedicating their lives to figuring out human genetics so that future populations could live longer, healthier, higher quality of life. So I was fascinated by that. Then take that to the pharmaceutical company. Now it's even a step closer to helping, because now I'm making contributions towards new medications that are actually helping people to realize these things, not just understand it, but on a daily basis. And very similar to what we're doing today, we had patients come on campus and they were incredibly grateful for the medications that we produced and how it changed and improved their quality of life. So a lot of it I felt great about, but I couldn't get over the fact that so much of it was enabling. In the chronic disease space, versus other conditions that, and I'm grateful for my blood pressure medicine. It's part of what enabled me to make my change, but I am not thrilled about the idea of someone going on at a young age and just being on it forever with continuing to increase doses over time until it becomes way too complicated, So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to replace my income. I didn't know how to support my family. I didn't know all of these things. So I just volunteered a whole lot in the space of whole food plant-based nutrition. I got to know everyone. It wasn't the community that it is now, back in 2007, 2009, 2010 even. So it was fun. I was able to do a lot, and I kind of, have my job, and then I kind of fulfilled my need to help people in a different way, after hours, which I know many of us do. But I did always want more, so I never stopped kind of looking for an opportunity to do that. And then my wife watched The Minimalist. We had already read Maria Kondo's, Tidying Up, and we were getting rid of stuff that didn't bring us joy and all of those things. And then she watched the Netflix documentary, The Minimalist, and she said, maybe we should become minimalists. And at the time, we had 6.5 acres of property. We had a big house and a big barn and a big garden and a skateboard bowl and a dirt bike track. And we had all this stuff, that required me to make a lot of money to be able to take care of, So the fact that she wanted to do this and I was ready to make a change. And so we did. We got rid of almost everything. We went from a 4,000 square foot house on 6.5 acres of property, and we had an attic, a basement, and a barn filled with stuff, to a 2-bedroom condo that was about 1,100 square feet, and we put all 4 of us. My kids started sharing rooms when my older son was going into high school. Then they went from having their own rooms and to sharing twin bunk bed. To having twin bunk beds in a room, and everyone was a great sport. It was a family decision, but we decided to do that, and it really freed up a lot of opportunity in life. And then my plan was then to work for a couple of years and save money so that I could kind of self-fund something going forward, whatever I decided I wanted to do, or at least some time to explore. And then I had an opportunity to leave earlier, and I just took it. So I left Novartis in August of 2018, and I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do. I had just earned, I think, my health coaching certification, so I thought I could coach, but I knew I had a few years where I could kind of explore and figure out what I wanted to do. So, so I just looked, and it literally came to me overnight. It was in January of 2019. So I was helping people. In January 2019, I realized that people don't have access. First, I realized people don't have access to plant-based doctors. And when you go to a conference like a Plant Stock or a National Health Association conference, these are places not where doctors are going to learn from other physicians, but these are where the public are coming to learn from these kind of authorities in the plant-based field, right? So it's general public in the audience. And you have a doctor who shares a success case. I think in this case, it was Dr. Sarai Stancic. She was speaking. She was sharing her story about recovering from multiple sclerosis. And I think she talked about a couple of patients that she was helping. And someone in the audience stood up during the Q&A session and they raised their hand and they say, I'm so-and-so and I'm suffering from a similar condition. Where can I find a doctor who can help me? And there was no answer. I mean, there's a whole bunch of questions. Will you fly to New Jersey? Will you fly to Cleveland to see Dr. Esselstyn? Will a phone call be good enough? But there was nowhere that somebody could just say, go here and schedule an appointment, because it's incredibly complicated. Because with state licensing and all of these things that have to come into place in order to make lifestyle medicine accessible. But my background in computer science kind of led me to understand the technology. And then my experience of knowing so many doctors in the field who were just as frustrated as that patient, because I know several doctors who had started up practice and they were just trying to find patients. Right. So we have a lot of doctors who want to find patients. We have a lot of patients who want to find doctors, and there's no place for them to meet. So I woke up one morning and I think I wrote about 4 or 5 pages, and it turned out to be the business plan and all of the reasons why we should do this, or why this needed to be done, whether it was me or anyone. And it goes all the way back to even when doctors are practicing lifestyle medicine, they're doing it in isolation. There's not, the 9 doctors, you should see them when they're all together. You should have them all on at once, and just basically you don't even have to say anything. You just throw one thing out there, and like the conversation's incredible. And they're all talking about different ways that they help people, and they're talking about different ways, like this works with this patient. What works? What do you guys see when you see this? And like they're truly collaborating, and they're learning from each other. And I think that's fantastic. I think we're going to collect data that no one else has, because we're going to be able to have so many patients that we're going to be able to collect enough data to share that with insurance companies and with places who want to see. I can imagine showing an insurance company, hey, I have data on 200 diabetics who you insure, and they paid out of pocket, and this is what they did, and they went from here to here, and now because they paid out of pocket, they're saving you $15,000 a year each. We need to show this to the people who are paying for it, so that they'll start to reimburse it and make it more accessible. But having one doctor collecting the data is going to be, it's going to be hard. But if we're having 9 or 12 or 25 doctors who are on the platform, and all the data is going to one place, it's just going to be right. So in addition to having access, it will help to really, my real goal is to shift the healthcare needle from the management to the prevention and reversal of disease. And so it all just adds up. And I couldn't think of a bad reason or a reason not to do it, except that it was going to be expensive and it was going to be hard. but luckily I was a minimalist, so I didn't have any other bills. So I figured I could just dump everything into this and give it a try.
Yeah, and you've already done hard things. Hard things. You transformed your health, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so magnificent. And I love that you touched upon the collaboration, because we've heard from all the doctors, and starting with Dr. Marbus, we had her on first, that, you guys they come together for these meetings, and it's like, I'm not just working with Dr. Davis. Like Dr. Davis, if there's the kind of like, we got a snafu or whatever, she's going to bring my case to the other doctors to get the expertise, like from Dr. Zhu or Dr. Zacharias or whatever it is. Like, they've got this living encyclopedia of knowledge and experience. So it's, like I'm seeing so-and-so, Dr. So-and-so, but I'm getting the benefit of the entire organization. And you have some great minds in that
really
organization.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's so exciting.
It's incredible how it's came together. And also the great minds are in that organization. But then, as you well know, even the people who are not in our organization are also so generous. Like Dr. Furman, Dr. McDougall, all of these, Dr. Esselstyn, all of these guys, if we have questions, I mean, someone in that collection of doctors at Plant-Based TeleHealth also knows someone else who will be very willing and able to share additional information. So yeah, you're exactly right. It's a big brain trust. There's a lot of knowledge that access there, and you're right. It doesn't matter which doctor you're seeing. You're getting that collective knowledge, applied to you during your appointment,
and a collective knowledge from like-minded individuals who understand the body's capacity and inherent wisdom, like to heal.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so cool.
So if I always like to wrap this into it. Like if someone's listening to this, they're like, oh my God, like that's exactly what I need. Like I'm scared because it's outside my doctor that I can see face to face, but I feel this pull like you did that day you woke up and it just came to you. Like I feel this pull to connect with these people. How do they do that? Like what's the first step?
Yeah. So the first step is you go to plantbasedtelehealth.com and there's a registration form right on the front page of the website, and you can just register as a patient. And then you'll get an email that explains, how to choose a doctor. There are some requirements. Not all doctors are licensed in all 50 states. So every patient sees whichever doctor they want as long as it's legal, as long as they're licensed to see them. So you have to go, you can either search by state or you can read the doctor's bios and you can see which state that they're practicing in. But then you select your doctor. And the appointments are $150 for 30 minutes. And they're $300 for 60 minutes. So the rate is $150 per half hour. It's up to the patient whether they want a half hour or an hour. I will say that the doctors always prefer a 1 hour appointment just because it lets them do a lot more with the patient. But we don't want to require a 1 hour first appointment because we also don't want it to be cost prohibitive for people. We really want it to be accessible. So the doctors do have extensive intake questionnaires. Once you schedule your appointment, you'll receive these intake questionnaires so you can actually share your background. You can share your lifestyle. You can tell them how you eat. You can tell them about your sleep patterns, your exercise routines, all of that ahead of time. And they make that investment in each of their patients. They read that before your appointment. Mm-hmm. So it's all with the intention of making that productive, whether you have a half hour or a half hour with them. Or an hour. And I'll just note that Dr. Clapper does charge a little bit more. He charges $50 more per half hour than the other doctors.
Because he's Clapper.
Because he's Clapper. He can do that. No. Truthfully, we're incredibly grateful to have him on the platform. And it's a little... and I think it's a very fair rate to see him. It's also, he's trying to be accessible to as many people as possible.
There's an energy exchange here that's very important, and the investment keeps things very clean. And I've learned this through running retreats and camps and things like that people think like, well, the camp is 5 days, that's what I'm paying for. And, 150 divided by 30 minutes, I'm paying this way. No, you're not. It's kind of like weight loss, right? That's just one data point. You are paying for the preparation of the intake form, for the doctor's thoughtfulness in reviewing that form, for the preparation. Like there's hours actually of work that is going into this 30-minute face-to-face time. So that face-to-face time is for the highest exchange and the highest good. And there's extreme value there. And I think that when I've trained my own mind to expand and look at like, okay, it's not just the 30-minute or the 60-minute visit. it's so much more. And I've learned it from the back end in planning different things, like a retreat for 2 years. They think, oh, it's seven days. No, it's actually 2 years of work to prepare this experience for you, for all of us to share, for the highest good. And I think that what a beautiful way to look at medicine. And that, you know, the investment in self is so important in honoring the commitment and the action that goes along with that financial investment. So important.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. And I couldn't agree with you more. And some patients, we don't know enough yet to say most patients or a lot of patients, but some patients get all of that money reimbursed from their insurance company. Because while we don't bill insurance, we provide what's called a super bill, and that's a receipt that includes all the doctor's information and their provider number. It includes all the diagnosis codes that they diagnose the patient with during the visit, and it includes the treatment codes. And that's all ready for anyone to submit to their insurance company. And the reason we can't predict it is because the plans vary so much, meaning that people have a very high deductible plan. So they have a low premium, but they know they're going to be paying some out of pocket, or some plans have no out-of-network benefits. But we know for sure that some patients get reimbursed the full $150 because sometimes the checks accidentally come to us. And we have to actually, in that case, they're made out to us. So we actually have to deposit those checks and then reimburse the patient their payment. So we do know it works. And that's promising as well.
Yeah.
And the doctors are working really hard to mimic, well, the whole team is, to try to mimic the in-person process as soon as possible. So back to your question about how to get started. If someone is not super technical, just go to the website, go to the contact page, and there's a phone number. And all you have to do is call it. And then we can guide anyone directly through the entire process. So we really don't want there to be any technical obstacles for anyone either. Like we will help. We can do the registration, we can do the scheduling, we can do everything except for your appointment. We can do that over the phone, and then we can help patients to get into their patient portal so that they can have this experience where you're not only talking with your doctor, you are seeing the doctor. When you go over your lab reports or anything like that, the doctor will share the screen and go over it line by line with you. So in my mind, it's really, we're trying to replicate everything that would happen in a normal exam room, but do it better because now it's focused on optimal health, and it's focused on wellness, and it's focused on prevention of disease rather than just, do you need medication or not?
Oh my God, it's so magnificent. And I'm so glad that we that you came on today to just give this other perspective, from the creator. Really this seed was presented to the world by you, and it's such a gift. And like I said in the intro, I can't imagine if you didn't decide and then back it up with action to make this transformation, because it's, countless, because I know it's just going to grow and grow and grow, how you are positively affecting the health of others and empowering people to enjoy their life. Yeah. Which I think is a birthright.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So thank you so much for coming on today. We so appreciate your time. Love to get to know you. And I think it'd be super cool after we interview everyone to have like a plant-based doctor throwdown. Like we bring them all on and just...
That would be great.
You should do that.
We'll just throw them some bait and just let them chew on it and share their
I can imagine you just put them in a circle and like throw an apple in the middle and just see what happens or something like that.
That's so cool. Anthony, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Thank you.